you super geeks out there.
No idea what you're
Radio
talking
Shack TRS-80. Yeah, that was pre-graphical user interface. But anyway, yeah, my dad had one. Yeah, it's just kind of a thing I guess I got into when I was pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to college?
I did. I went to seminary college. Yeah, to follow up on that. Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, so I went to seminary college and studied Greek, biblical Greek. I did drop out, to be fair, but I was there for 3 years. Yeah.
And so there was never like, you know, you didn't go to business school or did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't go to any kind of. I was in finance. That was kind of. I was in sales essentially all the way through college, high school, or even high school and college. It was one of the programs I wrote was a commission program, like how to track my commissions. And so I was really into sales and stuff. So I was just in finance, and so I went from that to eventually opening my own business. Yeah.
Wow. So metalhead.
Yeah.
Saved in high school,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Then computer geek to maybe I'm gonna be a pastor, and then start a business.
Yeah, it was funny. When I first started my first business, it was me and my buddies who were all like youth pastors at the time, and we all go, dude, let's just run it like a youth group. Like we just thought, run a business like a youth group. And
Well, so what was this business?
well, it was a mortgage company. It was the first company I started. Yeah, it was a mortgage company in 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. It was wild. In fact, what's interesting is my board today is all guys who were ex-pastors.
Wow.
Yeah, including Robbie, who's sitting right over from us. Yeah. So he worked at Saddleback. Yeah. So we all come from that mentality, and I think it teaches you how to run an organization a little differently than more like a community as opposed to a business.
Yeah, so this is really incredible for me. I'm not sure if you knew this, but you know, I started Discipleship like 2 years ago. I'm helping my pastor build his church and things like that. And ever since, you know, I've felt super called to just like I want to connect with people that are maybe like-minded. Definitely people they don't necessarily have to be of faith, but it'd be great if we could have these conversations because as I feel like Christians get a bad rap. And
for sure.
Yeah. And so it's like embarrassing sometimes, like I'm
sure.
Christian.
Yeah.
And I always believe that like people aren't afraid of Christ, they're afraid of Christians for good reason.
Totally.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
And so it's just really wild to me. I had no idea about any of this, but like just kind of like, and we haven't talked in months maybe, other than like maybe DMs here and there.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then, you know, I keep finding that there's more and more, you know, men of faith, people of faith that are in my network than I thought. And it's just a really cool thing. It's crazy to see how that's working out.
Yeah, so, I went through a really rough time, so I feel like I went through this thing where I would say it's not all that different today. I'm not a big fan of Christians because what they do.
Same.
So actually, it's so funny. My girlfriend now, when I met her and we're on our first date, and she's trying to talk to me about this stuff, and I just said, I just wanted to be straight out about where I was with my faith, and I just said, listen, I love the Bible, I love Jesus. Not a big fan of Christians and churches, and she goes, totally get that. And it was like I found like this person that understood where I was coming from. That it was like, and so yeah, as much as I say that, I have a total disdain for a lot of the way people do things. Like you're not going to see a fish on my company. You're never going to see me only hire Christians. That's nuts. Yeah, like
I think that was the opposite. That would be the opposite of what we're supposed to.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like and I'm still raw, and I still say what I think, and I probably drop a bomb here and there. You know what I'm talking? But it's like, but I feel like I'm just being real and honest, and what people probably are when they're by themselves. You shouldn't be a different person.
100%. Yeah. So like, when I imagine a mortgage company in the 2000s, I think of the Boiler Room. I think of Wolf of Wall Street.
Absolutely.
Like, how was yours different? How did you run it differently?
So so it's funny because the Big Short, if you've seen that movie,
fantastic.
That is such a great movie, and I lived that movie personally. So yeah, there was a lot of that was going on, and that's where I came from because I was in finance that whole time while I was in college, all the way through from essentially 90 to 2000. I worked at in corporate mortgage. So I went through all of that and, learned a lot of sales skills and all that. And so when I started my own thing, I was trying to do something different. And I said I wanted more of a community. And I said, I'm going to really tell people, hey, I understand you're supposed to be talking people into things. That's your job as a salesperson. But use your powers for good, not evil.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a thing I said all the time. And so we really worked hard on building culture and talking about the ethics of it. And we never ever got into trouble because of that. We were one of the clean ones, and they mortgage companies get a bad name. I almost don't even like telling people that story. But there were some good ones out there that were trying to explain things to people, that were really trying to help people. And during those times, a lot of people abused it, but we were not one of them. Yeah.
There is a fine line between good and evil when you can sell something.
It's professional manipulation, people.
100%.
Yes.
How,
Yeah.
like, what's the 101 on like staying ethical in sales?
Oh, it's such a great question, because I was telling somebody this the other day. I said, as a consultant, I can say it as a consultant. And as a consultant, you're a salesperson,
Yeah.
clearly. So what I preach to the other consultants in our office is I'll just say, put yourself in their position. What would you do if you were them? And then try to talk them into that. I do not feel bad for trying to talk somebody into something I would do if I were them. So I can feel like ethically I'm in a solid place, right? So, and yeah, I mean, there's a line of trying to manipulate people, right? Like, for sure. But marketing and sales is some form of manipulation.
Yeah.
But so is turning down the lights when you're in church.
Mm-hmm.
So it all counts, right? Whenever we try to create a mood in a restaurant, whenever we're doing any of that, we are manipulating people in some way, shape, or form. And so we do it all the time, when we're in the house, or whatever,
Yeah.
like any kind of form, putting on some music when a girl comes over, whatever, that all counts, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's about intention. It's about your motives. Is your motive to make a sale or make money over somebody, and what's in their best interest? Then you're in a bad place. Yeah.
What about when you're leading people in that organization as well? Because I would imagine that in your mortgage company, right? Like, not everybody that was coming in was believer, Christian, or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So how do you approach, let's say, the badass salesman who, like, we all know this guy who can close any deal, and you hear the call and you're like, that's why you closed that deal.
Sure.
Probably wasn't right. Like, how do you approach those types of situations and turn those people around? Or do you? Was it one of those things
you don't hire.
You just don't hire.
You just hire. I think finding the right who's is so important, and you have to be willing, whether it's a customer or a client, right? You have to turn down some clients. You're not doing the best work for you or your people, and you're certainly not protecting your staff if you are taking all the business that comes to you. And you're certainly not doing a service if you hire people that are up to no good, right? So somebody we hire doesn't have good intentions at any point, that's a bad apple. That's gonna cause problems. And I've done that. I've hired programmers where they were bad apples, and then even though they weren't salespeople, and they made others worse around them. Yeah.
That's always tough.
It's hard. That's why the last interview we do before we hire someone, because I don't generally interview people anymore, but the last interview that we do before we hire somebody is my interview, and it's a cultural interview. I am only looking for motivation there. That's the only thing I'm looking for.
What are some of those questions that you're asking?
Oh my gosh, somebody just asked me this the other day. Right, probably saying something right now. Yeah, one of them, to give away some of my secret questions, is the big one is, if you were to win the lottery tomorrow and money was never an issue, what would you do with your day? And really that comes down to, what is the thing they really want to do with their life? People mostly are doing things because of their bills or their reality, right? I think you should drop all that, do the thing you should be doing, right? And then that releases all the possibilities of what monetarily you could be making, right? So that's one of the questions. The other question is if you were up at midnight and you realized that your bills were past due, but you had no consequence for it, right? It wasn't going to hurt your credit. It wasn't going to cause a late payment. Would you get up and pay it? And I made up that question a long time ago. And the whole thing that I'm looking for in that is, is this a task person or is this a salesperson?
Mm.
Are they more customer service? Because a task person can't sleep.
Yeah.
You know, you hire those people because they're possessed by finishing and checking boxes. And it's an amazing gift, right? They just can't not do it.
Yeah.
They will lose sleep, they will do whatever it takes. And those people have a certain position in your company and they're necessary. Yeah. And then the other people, I'm like, I wouldn't pay it. I'm waiting until the next day.
Yeah, same. I was like,
who cares?
Does that make me terrible?
No, it makes you an entrepreneur.
But then I was thinking, like, Sarah, our controller over
Yeah.
here, I'm like, she would stay up and she would pay it on the, I'm like, okay.
That's it. That's
Let's
why
just
you
get
put her
to-
in that job. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. What great question, Sass. So I gotta ask you, if you won the lottery tomorrow and money wasn't an issue, how would you spend your day?
Do exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only answer I'm ever looking for. If that ever changes, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think about it, and I'd probably make a couple purchases, but I'd still be doing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Who's not going to make a purchase or two? Yeah.
Dude, that's rad. So
Yeah.
after the mortgage company, I mean,
Yeah.
that wasn't it. I mean, I kind of want to skip forward
Sure.
to Naked. Now, everybody knows that, maybe not everybody, but if somebody has met you in the last couple of years, 4 years or 5 years, how long has Naked been around? 4 or 5?
4.5 years.
4.5
Yeah.
years. They probably know about Naked. But you're involved in a lot of different things as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Naked is now a venture fund also. So we have Naked Ventures. It's kind of got Naked Creative, Naked Development. So it's created other companies that we now own percentages of and are investors in. So we've actually put our own money into stuff, you know. So a lot of these apps that we build for other people, we end up advising them and become part of the team at some point. And now that means, you know, I advise and own 6 other companies other than Naked. So yeah, so it's changed my daily, you know, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you manage so many things at once? Like, that's challenging.
Great people.
Mm.
Yeah. If you've never read the book, Who Not How,
Who Not How?
you'll never scale. Like, if you don't get that book, you'll never scale what the thing you are doing. The problem is most entrepreneurs have a job that they go to every day that they own. They own a job.
Mhm.
They don't own a company. A company is something you don't have to be there for it to function. If you have to be there all the time for it to function, it's still just a glorified job.
Yeah.
And I heard that years ago, and it really hit me hard.
Yeah.
And I realized, man, I'm too important to this thing, you know?
I like the tone in that. At first I was like, wait, that was weird to say, and then I was like, wait, no, that's the problem, is that you're too important.
Yep.
It's funny, you have you have a TikTok out. Is that something that you ever thought somebody would be saying to you when this came about? Like 2020, when TikTok was popping off, you're sitting across an interview and it's like, I saw your TikTok and it said this. How does that make you feel?
Okay, so it's so funny. I have a story about this, but to start out, I was on it when it was Musical.ly.
Same.
So I've been on it for many, many years.
That makes sense in your
yeah,
industry.
my
right?
15-year-old, which was probably 11 or whatever, we did one many years ago. So she was into it. She'd come over to my house and she'd be doing this thing and making these weird noises because, you know, that old sound of Musical.ly, you know, you're doing the dances. And yeah, so I got on it then. Yeah, I was curious when it would be relevant for other people, right? Other than dance people, you know, essentially. Not that great of a dancer. So, yeah.
Are you any great of a dancer?
I'm all right. I can not embarrass myself.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
about it. Yeah. So, I do like to dance though.
Nice.
So, I wasn't sure if I'd ever be on it. When I first got on there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
See where they go.
Well,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's funny that, you know, there's blind support, I think, on social media. We all have like a ton of friends on social that we're like, doesn't really matter what they post.
Yeah.
We're just gonna double tap and move on because that's how we show love these days. Like, that's
Yeah.
just what it is.
Sure.
Yours is one of the ones that I stop on because, for one, I'm like not impressed, like, oh, he impresses me, but I'm like, it's really cool for somebody that isn't just like the Gary Vee wannabe to kind of step out of their
Yeah.
maybe their comfort zone, get on camera, like you got the camera guy behind me now on you, like that's not easy to do. It's not easy to walk around and do that. And then it's cut up so well, props to you, where it's like, I actually want to watch this whole thing and get your insights because on what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's rad. And, you know, especially as somebody who's, you know, been running this agency for 8 years now, which is weird. It's like, I want to hear from somebody who I personally, I'm just like, dang, like, I feel like you're doing it right, or it looks, you know, at least from what I've seen, it's like I kind of want to, like I look up to that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great.
But you have this, in this video that I'm referencing, to your point of like, I was too important. You say, you were talking about an entrepreneur that you knew who owned a business, and he was like, what was the red flag in this business? He asked you, like, what's the red flag in my business? And I guess you told him, like, you're the red flag.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I guess it takes a certain level of like self-awareness to understand you're the red flag, but what were the red flags in this guy?
So I should reference that this guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Amazing.
So
maybe I should be asking him the questions. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, he's amazing. He's great. But sometimes entrepreneurs will think that they can go from one business and just jump into tech or something. And he actually, the reason why I told him answered honestly is because I knew he honestly wanted to know. And he's a great guy, great starter, had a wonderful idea. Honestly, one of the better ideas I've heard in a long time. And I hear about 150 a month, so there's quite a few. But I realized he didn't know how to run this company, and he wasn't where he was at in his life. He needed somebody who was young and hungry probably, and he needed to step aside.
Yeah.
You know?
That's always hard for the entrepreneur to hear, right?
It is. You know, it's funny. People say this all the time. They come into the office and, you know, and they'll go, well, John, do you need to get somebody like more technical in the room or something like that to me? And I'm like, wait, what makes you think I'm not technical? Like, I'm like, I didn't tell you I wasn't technical. But I think because I don't talk about technical things, people assume we're not technical. So I get a little offended. I feel the same way. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not technical. But yeah, it's funny. The more you start giving up these things, you know, I don't do graphic design anymore. I don't web design. I don't build apps anymore. I don't do any of those things. It does hurt your ego a little bit. But the question is, are you trying to build your ego or are you trying to build a company? So I try not to care. There's times, you know, you're in your car, you know, what happens? I don't know how to do anything anymore, right? But that's kind of what happens. But I'm trying to build something bigger than me.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Well, first of all, the humility in this guy who's worth $100 million or if not more to ask you, like, what am I doing wrong?
Sure.
Like, that's amazing. That's why he's successful, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also I think, and then in your spot too, the humility to be like, I'm too important to this business. I'm doing something wrong. You know, like, I think it's just something that people don't recognize, and they end up, like you said, creating these companies that really just support their own job. Like, they just create people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're just not going to get where, you know, I always, the first question we ask people is, where do you want to be in 3 months, where do you want to be in 3 years? Like, that's where we start every relationship off. And if knowing where they want to go, I'm really deeply trying to get them there. And sometimes it means getting them out of the way, or sometimes it means, you know, we need to take this other turn, or, you know, you need to tell them that this idea needs a pivot or something like that. And so I think dealing with people who really want to know the answer, you know, and they're really listening for feedback. And I think a lot of the very successful people, they've learned to listen. They know they don't get there by themselves. And so, and they're used to so many people just telling what they want to hear. So I always tell everyone, don't be that guy. Yeah. Don't be the guy that sits around and tells them what they want to hear. Be the one that tells them what they don't want to hear. Because they'll actually respect you for it. You know, it might go away, but you take that risk.
Yeah.
But don't you take risk in every relationship? So why wouldn't you take it in your business relationships?
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
So what's a recent moment for you where you had to make a pivot, like have all the humility and be as humble as you can, and then just like kind of sucker punch you like right in the tummy? It doesn't have to be at work, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, pivot. Oh
Yeah.
my. Oh, I'll tell you. You want to get personal?
Yes.
Can I get? I'm
I do.
oversharing, right? Okay. All right. Okay. So I've been, I've been single off and on, girlfriends and stuff, but single for 10 years, right? And it's funny. I had to go. I get a consultant and all that, even for that, right? Because I'm like, I'm clearly not very
For
good
dating?
at this. Yeah, I got a matchmaker.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, I went out and got a matchmaker. I got a professional who sets you up with people so that all of that, right? Because I'm like, I clearly don't have the right who in my life, and it's not Hinge, right? So I need to do something different, right? So I did that, and it was amazing some of the things they told me, and I was like, I felt like I was trying to run, the normal guy, Orange County guy game, in Orange County. And
What is that game? I want to know.
Oh God, don't ask me because it's not good. It wasn't working for me. So anyway, so I'm on this date, third date with this girl. I really really like her, and I don't like anybody, right? So I'm like on this with this really amazing girl. She's almost a doctor. She's gorgeous, everything I ever wanted, right? And I'm sitting there on this date, and she just goes straight up and says to me, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna laugh so hard when she hears this." So she says to me, she goes, "John, you just gotta stop doing this and just be you. Like, I just want you to straight out be you, or I'm gonna go away." And I said, "Whoa, like, dude, you said sucker punch. That felt like a sucker punch." I felt cold. You ever get those like cold feelings?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? This girl just called me out on a date,
Yeah.
like. And I was like, I'm not gonna blow this,
Yeah.
and I just got straight up honest with her. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I get hot. I sweat really bad when that happens. I'm like you get it.
Yeah.
So it sounds as if you're still dating.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Pretty serious relationship now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta know what was the strategy up until date 3? Come on.
Well, it was like, don't let her know too much about you. Be a little mysterious.
Yeah.
That whole thing. I read too many books on the subject. Yeah.
Do you did you still do the whole like wait 3 days until you text her?
100%.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
I see you laughing over here.
Yeah.
I tell all my homies, I'm like, dude, if you like her, just call her. Like, don't be a creep, but like, call her.
All right. The gist is this: if you're dating the wrong person, the game works. If you find the right person, you got to be straight up. That's what I learned from the whole thing.
That's probably the best dating advice anybody could hear. Maybe.
Yeah. So stop doing the game because you're just gonna find the wrong people.
Yeah. 100%.
So I date a lot of the wrong people. Yeah.
Man, that's
yeah.
So what's it like now? I mean, you have these 6+ ventures, plus you have Naked. Now you're dating. Like, what does like the perfect day look like to you? And yeah,
it's great. It's the same. I think that's the thing where it's too much for entrepreneurs. I've been doing the same thing every day for so many years that would be monotonous for people, and they couldn't do it. And honestly, it's like amazing. I love it. If you don't love the process, you need to get out.
I feel like it's same in the micro, but same in the macro, but the micro is like
For sure.
different.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. There's different days. So I follow Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach's time management system. So each day is a little different as far as what I'm scheduled to do, but everything is scheduled out. So, but I start at roughly this morning at 5:30 a.m. Right? Get my coffee, hit the gym, which happens to be in my garage. And I start there. We did a video on it. These guys all know us because we did it.
The 6 o'clock workout?
Yeah. It was all the video on my morning. So
that makes me
it was just like meditation, doing all that and getting ready for the day, and then start early. I like starting before people are working. I feel like I'm ahead of everyone, and doing stuff, and I don't have to deal with people calling me and stuff. So so I start there, and I scheduled out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I work from home. Tuesday, Thursday, I go in for about 5 to 6 hours. That's it.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you work from home. How do you maintain culture within your company, only being in the office like 2 days a week?
Well, I don't need culture that much. They need it, right? I need to provide it. So, and that doesn't go through me. So we do other things, like we have beach day in 2 weeks. We'll all be at the beach all day. We did boat rides, a couple weeks ago, or, a couple months ago. And then, yeah, we do stuff together. I think, and then we do meetings every other week that are always about for something inspirational. We don't do meetings where we sit down and go, what's wrong with our company? Those are completely useless. So I think we do things like that. And I think providing culture is more important than me being there all the time. I don't think that's as important.
Interesting.
I'm not the company. Yeah.
How long did it take you to realize that?
Long. Oh yeah. First company I had and sold, the mortgage company, was 6 years, and I think every day of that company I thought I was the company. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. What type of schedule do you have, like a structured schedule for? And this is such a 2022 question.
Yeah.
Do you have a structured schedule for your team or for the company?
Oh yeah, everybody runs on. they all know. Everybody runs on sprints because we manage tons of projects. So everything's run by sprints. As far as when they come in is completely depending on their meeting schedule. So you have to be there physically for in-person meetings, but if there's Zoom meetings, you're good to work from wherever. So I don't care when. I don't care if I see you like at a certain time.
Yeah.
It's all transparency. If you can see what someone's doing, hey, where are they effective? Give them that. We've been hybrid remote for 8 years.
Oh, for 8 years.
That's not a new concept.
I was gonna say, so like everybody's just jumping on this train for.
If you read the book by Jason Fried, Remote, who invented 37 Signals and Basecamp and all that, he wrote a book about it like at least 8 years ago, and I read it right when it came out. So
did you read it or listen to it?
Listen to it. Sorry. You've been watching my videos. Yeah, I don't read. I'm not supposed to say that. I can't read. No, I can read, but I listen. Yeah, 380 hours last year on Audible.
See, that's amazing. How many books did you get through?
I don't know that number. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because it's I can't sit down and read. Like,
no,
I can't.
No.
I get like a chapter out of my Bible a day, but then that's this much. So it makes it relatively easy. The rest is all listening to it. You know what I mean? But I think that it's interesting that you again. This is why I loved your stuff, and not is because you don't do the whole like I read a book a day. It's like no, you don't, dude. Like
no, I probably listen to an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. Yeah, on. And then I do personal books on the weekend, business books on the weekdays. Yeah.
So does that idea of read less, listen more, is that something that actually goes on like in your company? Do you like not read emails and you'd rather meet with people type of thing?
I think some people do use that reader app. I know Jason does for big documents that we have to listen to like large amounts of information. I think it's better when you're in the car. You can be productive. You're alone. Nobody's bothering you. You can get a lot of good alone time in the car, Yeah.
This is kind of a weird question, especially when we have like a couple people that work with you in the room. But you mentioned you're a Christian. You have a certain code of conduct for your own life. And for me personally, I try to not like have that bleed within my organization, but like in a weird way, I still I hope that it transpires one way or another, or I hope that we can, that we just do things the right way, I guess you could say. Yeah. How have you managed that when you're not hiring anybody based off of their faith or beliefs or anything like that?
Yeah. No, I think I personally, even from a political viewpoint, don't believe I need to like make someone believe what I believe. I think once you give up those expectations, like you're sitting there trying to force someone into some sort of box, like I would even say we're apolitical as a company. We are not political. We've worked with both sides of the aisle professionally. So in the last couple of years, we have big app out right now that's very much on one side of the aisle. So we are that way, and I would say the same thing about religious beliefs and all that. We are not a Christian company. We've never wanted to be a Christian company. That's not. I don't. Companies can't be Christians. They don't have souls. Okay. So you can't be a Christian company.
Yeah.
So we're not any of those things. Our name comes from a Bible verse. That's funny. People don't know that. When we say naked, like they're like, whoa. Like, yeah.
Help me here.
Yeah.
I still say
Well, okay, so yeah. It sounds provocative, and people think it's like that way. We get weird calls because of our name, but yeah, it's naked because it comes from the Bible verse, with Adam and Eve, naked and unashamed.
Yeah.
It's at the point of creation. You come in and there's nothing more. You're unashamed of that product at creation. That's the idea where I came across it so many years ago. Was that idea was, hey, when something comes in the world, it's naked and it's wearing just enough clothes. You don't need more. And the problem is when we have so much insecurities when we create something. That's why Steve Jobs said real artists ship. They have the courage to put the product out there. You need to do that. You need to ship the product out there and be vulnerable enough to let people like it or not like it.
Yeah, I think that's it's a good way to be. It's interesting. I listened to a podcast recently, and to your point of like, we're not trying to change people or anything like that, or change the way that people think. I listened to a podcast recently that was commenting on a lot of like the political decisions that have been made in this country lately, and the person, his name's Erwin McManus, on the podcast. I love that guy.
Erwin, yeah.
Yeah, he's just like
Barbarian way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says something along the lines of like, hey, well, when I look at these things, like I just look at the model of Jesus and realized he never tried to overthrow a government to prove his point.
Nope.
And it's just like, dang, like that's it.
Well, and they thought he was going to.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I didn't think when we started this podcast today that we'd be talking about our faith, but that makes me really excited and happy. That's cool.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, man, it's rad.
It's great.
So what's next for you? Like you're gonna be a rock star soon. I'm fairly certain with the way that these videos are coming out. I know that you don't want that, but it might happen.
Wow, that's not the intent. Yeah,
I
I appreciate that. Yeah.
It's so clear. Like, did I already say this? Just that, like, on the podcast? I don't care. I'll say it twice. It's so clear that that's not the intent in what you're doing. That's the difference, man. I don't know how to explain it. I think it's, like you said, I think it's like a sales thing. It's like the intent behind what you're doing is what really matters. And you can tell you're not doing it for like 1 million views, right? And
I don't even know how many views we have.
I don't either, which is great. But for you personally, golfer, poker player, entrepreneur, kind of personality, you're fronting this, but like, what's the thing that's next for you now?
Yeah, there's no, I think I don't even think about what's next. It's just about what I'm doing. Like I think I'm just trying to bring more value to everybody that I have relationships with. I think that's probably the better way to, the best way to say it, and just trying to max out the value I bring with the amount of time I have. So it's one thing I do is I don't work a ton of hours. I hate saying that around the employees because I feel like they're mad at me when I say that. I'm like, yeah, I work 35 hours a week. That's kind of intentional to not work a lot.
35 hours a week is still pretty strong.
It's fair.
If we're being honest.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah.
You've worked a lot. Can I affirm the fact that you've been you've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. You don't need the 70-hour work weeks anymore.
Yeah, there was a time when I was that guy, but I think I honestly don't have the energy for that,
Do you think it's necessary at one point?
Man, I've really wrestled with that question because I do when I talk, in public like forums and stuff like that. I will say when you're starting up, I think there's a season where that's necessary, where you have to just maximize the amount of time and attention you're putting on something. But I think that's just a season. I don't think it should be long lasting. But Dan Sullivan might disagree with me. I don't know. I'd have to talk to him about that. Yeah. I don't know. It's wrestling. I'm wrestling, but I say it a lot, and I say you should have no life. You don't have. You shouldn't be dating. You shouldn't be doing anything when you start a business. I think you should just drop all of that and give your full attention. You're dating your company in the beginning. And I did when I first started stuff. That's how I am. But I only for a little bit. You can't do that forever. It's not sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with that too. It's like was, I grew up on Gary Vee, I guess.
Yeah.
But after a while, you're like, all right, I'm good. I got everything I needed out of that. I don't see
Yeah.
there's a point of diminishing returns, I think.
For sure. That's very real. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, Gary sounds like that all the time. Yeah, he's crazy. I met him in '08 before he was Gary Vee, the way he is now, and he was quite a personality then. I didn't know who he was. I was kind of embarrassed because everybody knew who he was. And I had no clue. I was like, "Who's Gary Vee?" Or Vaynerchuk. I couldn't even say his name. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, he's become quite a big deal. But yeah, I don't know if he's right about that. It's By the way, let me just break it to everyone. Gary Vee is not infallible.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. Sorry, Gary, but he's not infallible. Just because he did it that way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You find your way of doing it. That's part of the journey.
Yeah, I love that, man. Dude, you shared so much with us today, and
Did I overshare?
You overshared for sure.
It's good.
You overshared for sure. What was I gonna say? I lost it. You overshared for sure, but you shared a lot with us today. I appreciate it. I'm super pumped just to know a little bit more about you and just understanding where you came from, what you're doing today. I respected you when you walked in. I have so much more respect for you now that we got to spend this 45 minutes talking a little bit. So I'm super pumped on that. Before I ask the last question of today, if somebody wanted to connect with you, how could they find you?
Yeah, best way is just to go to nakeddev.com. Yeah, that's the easiest way for sure.
I love that. All right, last question for today. You let me know that you were into hair metal when you were growing up in the 80s.
Yes.
Did you or did you not sport eyeliner in high school?
That's a big question. Can I get this deep right now? There were times when that happened. Yeah, and I may have wore a bandana around my leg.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did for sure.
I'm so proud of you right now. I love that, man. Thank you so much. To the listener, thank you so much for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. If you love the episode, we would dig a 5-star review. And if you didn't like it that much, feel free to stick it to us. But subscribe anyway, because we're going to have a ton of incredible people, just like John Driscoll, back on the show. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Bro, that was tight.